right. Once again, thank you so much for joining us on today's Business Fundamental Fridays webinar. Today we're going to be talking about building social equity, how to build relationships that make you more money. Who doesn't want to know that, right? Our teaching moment today is by Garrett Pearson. And Garrett, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Well, I'm really excited to teach about this. The concept of social equity was something that we came up with, Scott and I, probably about 5 years ago, wouldn't you say, Scott?
Yeah,
I think
that's
it's
about
about
right.
5 years ago when one day I was showing Scott some of the people that I was building relationships with, some of the search engine and results that I was getting, um, and we called it social equity and how to build that social equity. And really, what social equity is this is what I a kind of a definition that I've come up with. It's relationship or relationships, okay, it can be multiple, that bring you or your business more brand awareness through trust and service. Now, social equity always starts with you and only grows through your generosity and hard work. Okay, I'm going to kind of give you guys some more visual of what social equity is and how you can build it. Now, think of building social equity as relationship syndication. So, for example, another way that we think of this is networking. But I think building social equity is a lot more than just networking. And so you can see this picture here. You can talk to somebody, build a relationship with that person, and then, you build a relationship with another person, another person, another person. Um, what I want to do is start out with showing you guys how you can build, build that social equity through relationship syndication. Now, first of all, as you see here, it starts with you, and then usually you're going to talk to somebody else. But if you really want to build that equity in your relationships and in your business and in your life, you need to build a relationship and start syndicating that relationship with an influencer. Okay. Now I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you and take you through a influencer in my life that I built social equity with, that helped me build my business, helped me get up on stages so I could speak, and helped me sell more of my books, and helped me become um, more equitable in my relationships that I have, and it's helped me grow my business. So that person is Alex Mendozian. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of take you through what he's done for me and how these relationships, because I built a relationship with one influencer, and this is just one example of, I could come up with tons of examples. This is just one example that I want to show you guys. So it starts out with me. You'll see a picture of me there. So Garrett Pearson. What I did about 5 years ago is I built a relationship with Alex Mendozian. And the interesting thing is, I didn't, I really looked up to Alex. And if you don't know who Alex is, he's definitely an influencer in the online marketing world. You might know him from Teleseminar Secrets was one of his main products, and he's just an amazing guy and very well known and very well respected. And 5 years ago, I wanted to get to know him. And so what I did is I invested in him. So that's, a tip that I can share with you guys. If there's somebody and an influencer that you guys want to get to know, then invest in their products or invest in them some way. So I bought his product that he did with Paul Colligan called Podcast Secrets. Again, this is 5 years ago. That product really doesn't even exist anymore that I know of. And I was able to go to the Podcast Secrets event in Las Vegas. And in Las Vegas, I met Alex Mondosian, and I got to meet him, and then I built a relationship with him. Now, what I didn't do is I didn't go there and kind of stalk him. I went there and asked him what I could do to help him. So keep that in the back of your mind because I'm going to talk about that again. I asked him what I could do to help him. Okay, and then the relationship started. I started building that social equity with Alex. Now, what Alex did is we built the relationship, and he introduced me to T. Harv Eker. Okay, and I'm sure a lot of you guys know who T. Harv Eker is, a very famous speaker and his New York Times bestseller. And so Alex introduced me to T. Harv Eker. Alex and T. Harv Eker put me up on T. Harv Eker's stage, and I got to speak on a T. Harv Eker stage, which for me was just amazing. So you can see here my social equity is growing. Now at the T. Harv Eker event, and see where this all takes us, I met Greg Habstrett, okay, another very well-known marketer and just an amazing guy. He's the creator of Simple Wealth, and he's created the Authority Formula. Just an awesome guy. So I met Greg at the T. Harv Eker event that I spoke at, and we became friends. And Greg invited me to speak at his event. Okay, so see, just because I built a relationship with one person, Alex Mendozian, I've now met two people, and they've both had me speak on their stage. Now, from Greg at Greg's event, I met Max Simon. Max Simon invited me out to his event, and I got to meet Max at a deeper level and become friends with Max. And at Max's event, I met Robert Evans, and we became friends. And the relationship grew, and Robert Evans invited me to speak at his event. Now at Robert E. Evans' event, I met Kelly. And here we are today doing these Business Fundamental Fridays. I had met Kelly before that, but that's really when our relationship blossomed, I guess you could say. But what this is just one example, okay, from one person that I built a relationship with. Now, hopefully, this gives you guys the visual of the equity that you can create with one relationship. Okay, with that relationship, I built 5 other wonderful relationships. Now, with that being said, those relationships, those people, for example, Max or Robert, those people have people in their lives that I've also built relationship with. So it goes on and on and on, and more people know me. Max Simon promoted my How to Write a Book training program, and I've been able to do webinars with Greg. I've been able to go to other Greg Habstreit events. I've been able to work with Kelly more. So now people that Kelly knows, they're also going to get to know me. So hopefully these pictures and that diagram that I showed you gives you an example of relationship syndication and how one relationship can change your life. Now here are the rules to building social equity. You always give first. Okay, now this is the law of reciprocity, as most of you have heard before. You always give first. If I would have gone to Alex or any of those guys that I showed you and asked first, the relationship would not, more than likely, would not have blossomed. And for example, and you might see this in your own life, but when people come to you and they want something from you, it's not likely that you're going to help them. But if you trust them and they've done something for you, you're going to be more likely to do something for them. And so you must always give first. If you want to get to know somebody, go buy their product. Go give them, do something for them. Okay. And then if you're going to always give first, then make sure you never ask first. Okay. And a big piece of building relationships is patience. I was very patient with building a relationship with Alex, and it paid off, and I was persistent in it. Okay, so those are some of the rules that you need to play by when building social equity. Now, here are some ideas that you can do to help you with. Maybe some of you have somebody in your mind that you want to get to know, but you just aren't quite sure how to go about it. One thing that I like to use is something called send out cards. Now, this is a program. I think it's a multi-level marketing thing, but you can get into it without doing the multi-level marketing and just use the cards, and you can send out cards to people. And I love doing that, sending out personalized cards directly to that person. So this way you're going to have to find out how you can get their address, and usually that's not hard, and then you send them a card thanking them for something that they did, appreciating them for the content that they shared with you, or just you're going to send them something that catches their attention and knows that you appreciate them. Another way is through social media. I can't tell you how many relationships I've built just through social media, how many people I know that I've really never met before in life, in person, I mean. And so social media is a great way. Personalized videos. This is something I've used before in my life that really goes a long way, to just use your webcam or use a video and personalize a video to somebody, telling them how awesome they are. And that's the next thing. Talk about them. And if you're with them in person, listen and play. People have egos. So tell them how wonderful they are. And always use their first name as often as you can. And I learned that from a book that I want to suggest to you guys quickly, is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's a classic and I'm sure most of you have read it, but if you haven't, read it, and if you have, reread it, because to me that is the book that teaches how to build social equity. Now I've got a quote here that um, I want to share with you before I end, that talks about, probably you guys have heard, it's who you know. Okay. And I don't believe that to be true. I believe it's not who you know, it's who knows your abilities and who trusts you. And an example of that is, I knew a very wealthy kid. Okay, he was a young kid that was very, very wealthy, and because of his parents and because of who he was and his status, lots of people knew him. But because lots of people knew him, it didn't mean he got ahead in life. In fact, he fell back in life because he was such a punk, to put it lightly. He was just a mean kid. Nobody liked him. Nobody trusted him, and he really had no abilities. And so lots of people knew him, but they didn't trust him. And so it's not who you know, it's who knows what you can do for them, or who knows your abilities, and who trusts you. So when you're going out there trying to build that social equity and building up the equity of the relationships in your life, make sure that you build on your abilities and building that trust that is so, so important. So that's it, guys. You have any insights on what I've talked about today?
Well, I certainly do. Great job. I agree, of course, with everything that you've said. I think that the Dale Carnegie book that you showed, if you can put that up there again, they've got one out now that is How to Win Friends and Influence People in the Digital Age. And that
Hmm.
one might be a very good one to also read. I'm assuming it has a lot of the same principles in it, but it really gives you the benefit of knowing how to be online and work those relationships that way too. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Scott?
Yeah, this I don't think most of the people on the call know this, but one of the best examples of building social equity is the first thing that I ever saw you do, and that's writing your first book,
Yeah.
What Success Takes. And that was pretty cool because we were working together at the time, and you just decided one day that you were going to write this book and you were going to interview 30, 30 super successful people that you didn't know, and you were going to combine all their interviews into a book. And I thought you were crazy, and you were going to do it at like some crazy time frame, like 30 days or something.
Right.
And you just sat down, and every day you would call, and um, you one of the things that Garrett did is he realized that if he could get one cool person to think that he was cool, then he could leverage that relationship and get other cool people to do it. And so he contacted one person. They said they would do the interview, and then he contacted the next person and said, "Well, this guy's doing the interview," and so that guy said he would do the interview, and you basically became friends with like amazing people in industry,
Yeah.
just through relationships and building that social equity. I don't. You could probably tell the story better than me, but um,
No, you're right. I mean, essentially, I leveraged my relationship with Alex and other people, some of these other well-known people, And so it was a lot easier to get in the door again. And that's where the equity comes in, is you can leverage these relationships that you have. I now have relationships with T. Harv Eker, Greg Habstrip, Max Simon, Robert Evans, Kelly Frazier. That's just a very small example of the equity that I've built, that social equity that I built, because it all started with one person or two people or three people, just continually building those relationships. And then when you do build those relationships, you need to cultivate them and keep them up. And that's where sending out cards and sending emails and thanking them and telling them how awesome they are, that comes into play. But yeah, the book example is a great example of how I was able to, build 30 really powerful relationships really in a short amount of time, all because I leveraged the equity that the small equity that I had at the time, and I used that to build more relationships. So,
Yeah, let's
yeah.
talk about that for just a second too, Garrett, because I think it's really important to note how you would go about doing that type of a process. You know, how Garrett was talking about giving to somebody. Garrett, if you don't mind flipping back to that slide too, that would be great. You first have to give, and definitely by creating a book like that, you're giving to that person that you're also asking from, because what Garrett has probably told them was, the book is going to be leveraged in such a way where they're going to have, people coming back to them once they read the success story. Garrett, I don't know, I haven't read the book, but
uh,
I'm assuming that you probably gave them a little bit of shout out after each story. Is that what you did?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, there are people who are going to be reading that book are going to go back to those people. So he's giving back that way as well.
Hmm.
And leveraging in your business is one of the greatest things that you guys can do. And I know my brain did not work like that at first. But here's an example of just what happened this past week, in fact. I don't know how many of you know who Raven Davis is, but she is someone who's an award-winning radio show host off of CNN. And then CNN was bought out by CBS, so she worked for CBS. And then she decided to go off and do her own thing. She met with a man who actually is the engineering mixer for Michael Jackson's music. And so those two are now working together. And she contacted me through Facebook. And if you don't think the social media is a really big component of your business, you really need to think twice on that. Through Facebook, she said, hey, Kelly would love to connect again. And so we connected, and she has invited me into her circles that she knows. Now keep in mind, Raven only interviews celebrities and very high level people. So if I can connect with Raven on that particular level, then I can certainly connect with the people that she knows, and who knows what's going to happen there. I know that they also do the Napoleon Hill Foundation wants me to interview for them, and so she's going to be interviewing me. So you just never know how you can leverage that. And how I was able to help her was to explain to her about what I do as far as masterminding. So I wanted to give back to her at the same time, and so we just started talking about how we can both work together, leverage our skills and our capabilities and talents and what we could do for each other, and we're going to see where it goes.
Yep, exactly. That's perfect. Love it. And another example, going back to the Greg Habster example, you can share your equity with other people. So I had built this equity and these relationships with all these people, and Greg being one of those. But I've also shared those relationships with Scott and other people. So for example, you know, um, because I had a relationship with Greg, he invited me out to another one of his events as a VIP, and then I was also able to, because of that, invite Scott. And we were able to meet some even more influential people like Robert Cialdini and Peter Diamandis, who are just some amazing marketers and business owners. And so you can share your equity with others too, which is how you're going to build even more. Okay. And Bindi has an amazing question that is perfect, because I thought this question would come up, but they say, how did you initiate the first point of contact when you didn't know the person at all? Or how do you initiate the
Mhm.
first point of contact? And that is a perfect question, Bindi, and I think a lot of other people probably have that same question. And if you go back to that list that I gave you, and now these are just a couple examples, okay? So let me give you an example. Let's see.
What about you could tell them about Russell?
Yeah, so
You,
Russell
you didn't know
Brunson.
Russell?
Yeah, exactly. So here, what I did, and this is a social media example. Um, Now this was again about 4 years ago. I don't know if any of you know Russell Brunson, but he's an online marketer as well, and a lot of these people are because that's the industry we're in. But anyways, he's somebody that I wanted to get to know and build a relationship with, but I did not know how to get a hold of him. And so what I did is I bought a couple of his products and I found out a little bit more about him. So that's the first step is you need to find out a little bit more about that person. How many kids do they have? Do they have dogs? Do they have where do they live? What, and you can find out a lot of that on their about pages, on their Facebook pages, on wherever you can find out and do more research about that person. Make sure you do as much research as you can. So I learned a lot about Russell, found out that he was in wrestling and that he was lived in Utah and now lived in Idaho. Well, I live in Utah, and my best friend was an all-state champion of wrestling. And so I got on Twitter, and luckily at that time Russell was on Twitter as well, and I contacted him via Twitter somehow, some way, I don't remember exactly, and I asked him if he knew my best friend Ashton Buswell and if he ever wrestled him. And all of a sudden, Russell starts writing back to me. Here's this multimillionaire, big business owner, and he's writing back to me. And at the time, I was just this little nobody. And I started building that relationship. So build that relationship on common grounds, do the research, and then somehow get in contact with them. If I couldn't have got in contact with him via Twitter or social media, then maybe I would have found out his business address and sent him a card with send out cards, or I would have created a personalized video and somehow sent it to him. So most of the time you're not going to know them, but another way that you can initiate somebody that you don't know, like I did not know T. Harv Eker, and there would have been no way unless I would have paid tens of thousands of dollars to actually get to meet him. But I leveraged my relationship with Alex, and Alex introduced me to him. And so another way to initiate with people you don't know is find somebody that knows them and get to know them, or get to know their gatekeeper, because a lot of these influencers and people that you want to get to know, they have gatekeepers, receptionists, assistants, whatever. So send a card to the receptionist, or send the receptionist flowers, or send one thing that we did that was pretty cool. We needed to build a relationship, me and Scott, for our business with ClickBank, a big merchant provider. And that merchant provider, we didn't know how we could really get a hold of them. Well, so what we did is we found out their address, and we had tried to contact them, and then what we did is we sent them how many pizzas, Scott? 10? Like,
Yeah,
I think we
I
kind
think
of
there was like
found out
10.
how many was in the office, and then we ordered pizza over the phone at a local area, and I think we spent a lot of money. It wasn't cheap. We spent like, I mean, we sent like 10 pizzas, like at a really nice pizza restaurant, and they got the pizzas, and then we had the pizza company also take a note that it was from us with our contact information. And lo and behold, and through another relationship, we, you know, soon we're on go-to meetings with ClickBank and trying to negotiate a deal. Now, nothing's come of that yet, but we have a relationship now with the CEO, the CFO, and the COO of that company. So you just got to be unique. You've got to come up with different ideas. And Kelly and Scott, maybe you guys can give them some other ideas. But obviously, the first thing you need to do is you need to give. You need to do something, and you need to initiate and give. And that can be through your research and through just giving them something, or even giving could be playing on their ego, telling them how awesome they are.